And welcome to the Technology Geek Radio Network, and welcome to the Technology Geek podcast, radio show, whatever you want to call it. Depends on how you're listening. If you're listening live on our website, thetechnologygeek.org, I guess you can consider this a radio show. If you're going ahead and listening to it over on our podcast form, if you're downloading it from iTunes or any of the podcasts that we're on, it'd be considered a podcast, and if you listen to it live, I guess it's a radio show. So we are here, as we are every week, to talk computers, the internet, anything security, anything geek, pretty much. I am your host, Brandon LePanny, the Technology Geek, and as always, you can find me on our website, thetechnologygeek.org, my Twitter at LePannyTech, and all other forms of social media. Go to our website, and more than happily, you will go ahead and find all the ways you can connect with me: Facebook, Google+, YouTube, all that wonderful stuff today. So a couple things I want to go over, folks, before we get too far into the show. I'm going to make sure to make our call out to our sponsors. First and foremost, I know a lot of you tried to call in last week via open lines, and you were not able to. Last week was our first live broadcast. We're very, very proud of that. We did our first live streaming broadcast, and unfortunately we had some problems with the audio on the call-in, which I do very much apologize for that, but I believe we have actually gone ahead and we have actually worked all that out this week. So we are ready to rock and roll this week. So we're going to open up the lines here in a little bit, and I'm going to tell you how to get in touch with us for the open lines. Feel free to call in. As always, the chat room is always available. You go to our site, thetechnologygeek.org, go to our chat, go under our show, click on chat room, and you can go ahead and get in the chat. The chat room always fills up, maybe about I'll open the chat room up usually 5 to 10 minutes before the show airs, and then everybody can jump in there. That's the popular place to hang out, I guess, on a Friday night if you're a geek like myself or like any of our wonderful listeners. So a few things I want to talk about as well. As you folks know, we've been for a while working on getting the Technology Geek Radio Network off the ground. We have about, I would say, probably about maybe 10 or so podcasts as part of our show already. If you have a podcast and would like some free airtime, please go ahead and shoot us an email on our website underneath the Contact Us link, and you can go ahead and send us an email with your podcast. We'll more than happily put it up, give you some radio time. The other question as well, folks, was two questions. Was how do I go ahead and listen to the radio network? It's very simple. You can either go over to Shoutcast, which is a wonderful, I like Shoutcast myself. I like listening. They have an app for the iPhone. They have Winamp for the Android and all that, which is really cool. I wish they'd come out. Supposedly, with the acquisition of Winamp, they're actually going to go ahead and they're actually going to have a Winamp for the iPhone now, but you can actually go ahead and get it on your Android phone. TuneIn, we are on TuneIn all the time. You can listen to us. TuneIn. If you have Winamp, like I said, you can listen through that, or if you can just go to shoutcast.com and listen to us through our Shoutcast stream. Some people, obviously, questions about the way we do business as far as the radio network goes. It is not a 24-hour radio network just yet. We are going to do that. We are working on it, but right now it is not 24/7. We air every day from 10 to 5. And this show airs obviously live on Friday nights at 9 o'clock, 9 to 11. We air every single week. But our show from last week will replay from 10 o'clock to about noon on Fridays. And sometimes we even actually replay it from 12 to 2. So a lot of questions about programming. I know it's a little confusing. We are working on getting it all straightened out, and we will get it all straightened out. I promise you that. But we are working on it. But I want to thank, like I said, everybody for listening. We have tons of people, by the way, listening to the stream now. We have a lot of people listening to the show live. We have a lot of people listening to the show. What we will do is, since the show is only live streamed on our website from 9 to 11, we do not stream the show on our radio channel live. We only do it off our website. Right now we do anyway. That was part of the audio problem we had last week. What we do is we will re-air the show. The encore presentation will air from 11 till about 1 in the morning. We do, that's what we're doing right now. I mean, again, things can change. We are still developing it. We're getting it off the ground. But like I said, we do have the podcast still available. I know we have a lot of podcast listeners. When we first said we were going live, we had a lot of people really nervous saying that, oh my goodness, I'm not up at, between 9 and 11 to listen to your show. And I'm like, not to worry. We're still going to do podcasting. Don't freak out. Okay. We're still going to do the podcast. We're just doing live from, like I said, from 9. We're still doing the show 9 to 11. We're just doing a live show, but the podcast will still be available. And actually, if you are a podcast listener, you're actually getting almost an extra 45 minutes of show, because the old show is only about an hour and 15 minutes. So we got that going on right now. So some other things as well that we have going on here that I want to talk about. Just a couple other quick programming things, I guess you could say. We do have open lines. Open lines are exactly what they sound like. They're open lines. You can call me about anything. The only rule we have with that is no bad language. I don't like bad language. We don't need it. There's just no call for it on the show. So if you call and you have nasty things to say, I'm just going to hang up on you. To call us, as always, Lapani Tech on Skype. That is the way you call us. And like I said, it's open lines. Anything. You want to talk to me about the weather, how the weather is here? You want to talk to me about anything going on with tech? You want to talk to me about geek, Star Wars, Star Trek, wrestling, anything. I don't care. It's open. Go ahead and call us with it. So I guess what we'll do, folks, is first thing I want to do, and I'm so sorry about this, we forgot one of our sponsors last week. Last week we actually only highlighted our one sponsor, but again, we were a little crazy. Again, it was our first live broadcast, so if you can imagine, we were a little nervous, a little hectic trying to get it off the ground. We had some technical issues as well, but we want to go ahead and get our sponsors out there first. Obviously, our first sponsor, Audible, wonderful service. I like Audible. I have it myself. I just finished up a couple of books for actually, well, how much? It's $14.95 a month, but with our trial, you get the first month free. You get one free download. You can keep the book after you download it. Download it, try it. If you don't like it, cancel it. Just please make sure you use our trial code. This way we get the credit for it. Again, it's audibletrial.com/techgeek. And again, that's audibletrial.com/techgeek. Get one free book. And I tell you, I like audiobooks when I'm driving, working out, doing any of that stuff. It's really wonderful to listen to audiobooks. It's kind of like a story in your mind. It really is wonderful. And I personally am a huge fan of audiobooks. I do a lot of driving with my business, and it just always seems to make the time go by so much faster. And to me, it feels like I recoup time I lose every day. Again, audibletrial.com/techgeek. Again, now the other one we have as well is our buddies over at ProXPN, and I'm so sorry we forgot to mention them last week on the podcast. Again, it's ProXPN. They are a really wonderful service, and what you can do is it's a cloud-based VPN. I like them, and they've been sponsors of ours for a while, so we want to just make sure we call those guys out. Again, it's proxpn.com, and if you use our coupon code TechGeek, TECGEK, you actually will go ahead and you will get yourself a little bit of a discount on your first purchase. And again, that's ProXPN, TechGeek, TECGEK. And they're our sponsors as well for the radio show. And we're very, very grateful to have them. They've been a sponsor of ours on the program for quite a while now. So we're very grateful. And again, we are very sorry for forgetting them. The funny thing is, one of our listeners is the one that actually pointed it out that, hey, you missed ProXPN. So just to give those guys a big shout out. So before we get to the tech news, and there's always a lot of tech news this week, there's especially some, but I want to get to a few things. Apparently, I got a couple of emails from people relating to my whole feeling on school uniforms and conformity. Now, yes, maybe my comments were a little bit harsh, that, we're all if we all conform, pretty soon we'll all be hailing one leader, and I kind of made it, I guess you could say I was kind of a bit controversial about the way I said it. And I didn't mean anything nasty or saying that we're all going to be, under a ruler again. And how some people say, oh, you're talking about the way Germany was during World War II. I didn't mean that. Maybe it was a bit harsh. What I was trying to say is, folks, that, if everybody's meant to be the same, nobody thinks outside the box. And this country is built America is built on great thinkers. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, those two men alone single-handedly, in my opinion, drove the economy to the height of its greatness in the 80s and the 90s. That's my personal feeling. I know I'm going to get a lot of people right now on Twitter telling me, oh, what are you talking about? Well, you want to think about it, it really is true. Microsoft and Apple pretty much spearheaded this economy in the 80s and the 90s. They just dominated the country as far as their ideas. Guys like Oracle, guys like Larry Ellison, the guys from Google, Larry Page and all that. I mean, you are talking about guys that pretty much have thought outside the box and done things that are just amazing. You look at what Google's done, Netflix, all these big .coms and all these computer companies. When you look at what they've done and the ideas they've come up with, and just being the visionaries that they are, is just what drove this country to greatness. And it still is great, by the way. I know we've had some struggles with healthcare and some other things, but I truly believe that there is no better country to live in this world, and I support everything that our troops do and all that, keeping this country safe and keeping it free. I know we've had some problems, with our leadership in our country, no matter whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever you are. I know we've had some struggles with, our leadership over the last 10 years, maybe, 15 years. But made some decisions past made that weren't the best for this country. But I still believe, being somebody that has traveled the world quite extensively, I don't believe there's any better place in the world to live than the United States of America, and I truly believe that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm afraid of everybody conforming and everybody thinking one way, because that if we all think one way, it starts with school uniforms, and it starts with reading materials, and it starts with other things. So I truly believe that. We need people that don't conform, that do things differently. That's what made this country as great as it is. So, I believe that. So I just want to say, I want to see the next Larry Page, I want to see the next Bill Gates, and I want to see the next Steve Jobs. And I don't believe that will happen if we all think the same way. So, that's what my thoughts were on that. So I do apologize if I offended anybody. It was my thoughts, was my feelings, and maybe it was a bit harsh, maybe it was in the moment. But, I do truly believe that there is no better country than this, and I think this country is free, and we want it to remain free, and we want people to create great things and create jobs in this country, which we still do. Apologize if I offended anybody, I guess. So some other things as well, folks, that I want to get into. Some other things. Somebody had sent me an email about schools using iPads for kids that can't read. That's not new information, by the way, folks. That's been happening for a while now. What happens is, folks, with that, if a student has a problem or is dyslexic and they can't read, the iPad has an app that will read to the child, which is phenomenal. A problem with that is, when I was a kid, if you were dyslexic, which I did have a friend that was dyslexic, you actually went ahead and pretty much if the child was dyslexic, you had to learn how to deal with it. Had to look at things 2 and 3 times and all that. And it was something that my friend struggled with most of his way through high school and through college. And when he got his master's, it was something he struggled with and all that. He didn't have something to read to him. Now, when I was talking to him about this, when somebody sent me this article, I called him up just to talk to him for a little bit. He knows I do a radio program, and I just asked him what he thought. And he said to me he thought it was a great thing. It's helpful, but he thinks that the kids also need to learn how to handle it. If what if they don't have their iPad readily available? Then what do they do? And he was concerned that if they're teaching kids how to use the iPad and how to use the iPad to read to them, how are they actually learning how are they going to learn to handle it? What if they're construction workers, they're 30 foot up, and their boss member says, hey, read this, and they don't know how to read it. They're going to go down and get the iPad out of their truck, 30? I don't think so. So they need to, if they are using that, I think the main concern is, yes, teach them how to use that tool, because that's what it is. It's a tool, but as well as to teach the child as well how to actually interact and deal with that situation, with the kid actually being able to go ahead and not only use an iPad, but also be able how to use use his own mind to deal with this. I don't want to call it a disability, but I can't think of anything else to call it right now. So that was my main concern, and that was my friend's main concern as well. He said, are they teaching them both ways, or are they just teaching the kid one way? And the truth is, I don't know. That wasn't in the article, but that was what we were talking about, and it really was an interesting article, and it really is great that they have that. For kids and stuff like that. Some other things as well that's getting really, really popular with the schools right now. I know that a lot of the schools I've been working with are actually going to it. Is actually the Chromebook, and the Chrome and Google actually offering the apps for the learning and stuff like that for the kids, and it really is amazing. They actually even created an archive vault for email. They've gone as far as to create some other really, really interesting things for the kids, for sharing documents, using Google Sites as like a SharePoint, a lot of really, really cool things that I myself really like, and I think it's really innovative. What I'm noticing, especially now in schools, is you have years ago you either had Windows and that was it. Now you're seeing a lot of mixed environments. You may have Apple, you may have a bunch of Macs, you may have a bunch of Chromebooks, a bunch of Windows machines, a bunch of iPads, tablets, Androids, Kindles, all that stuff. Networks are becoming, are becoming mesh network, where it's a little of everything. And I think it really is good as long as things are put in place to support it and manage it, which I think that's something that a lot of people in my field, including a lot of these technology people that I deal with and work with, can agree with me. Perhaps they, along with these great tools, they really management for the people that are going to be supporting them, like people like myself. And I know a lot of you guys out there that are technology people that work on this stuff every day and listen to us. And so some other news as well, folks. I want to get into some geek news as well as pop culture, I guess you could say. As a lot of you guys know, I am a big wrestling fan, and unfortunately, the Ultimate Warrior, a very fan favorite of mine as a kid, big fan of his growing up. He unfortunately passed away the other day. Collapsed in his hotel room only 2 days after being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I think it's very, very sad. And our thoughts and our prayers go out to his family. I feel, really upset about that. The guy was truly, an icon back in those days. And, unfortunately, he passed away the other day. They don't know if it was a heart condition or what it was. Obviously, Nancy Grace immediately took the opportunity to go ahead and jump on, the steroid bandwagon, talk about Chris Benoit and all that. And Diamond Dallas Page, really was on there. As most people know, he's a big health advocate now. He actually has a yoga program and all that. I actually do his yoga. It's amazing, folks. I dropped about 20 pounds very, very quickly. He's got an amazing program. It is amazing stuff with these guys. Getting Scott Hall clean, getting all these guys clean. What's his name as well? Jake the Snake. All those guys, getting them clean, and he does just an amazing job with these guys. And he was on there talking about how, back in the day, steroids were accepted, they weren't illegal, all that stuff. He really did a wonderful interview. It actually is worth listening to. It's actually up on his YouTube page. It actually is a really great interview. He does a wonderful job with it. And, as soon as they see, after the whole Benoit thing, anytime they have a chance to jump on the steroid bandwagon, they always do. It really is unfortunate, but they do. And, he was up talking about how, he doesn't do steroids anymore, how he, really got himself healthy and clean. He was a little under the weather over the weekend. He told people he was under the weather. And, how he unfortunately passed away. It really is unfortunate. But some other things as well that I want to talk about with wrestling related to technology. But before we get into that, I just want to say, being a wrestling fan myself, I was kind of shocked that The Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar. I'm not going to get somebody in the chat room, a couple of people I know that are wrestling fans saying, what do you think about him losing to Brock Lesnar? I was shocked it was him. I know Taker wanted to lose to Lesnar. That was a big thing. He wanted to lose to Lesnar. That was his pick to who he wanted to give his streak up to. I personally would have picked somebody like a Punk or a Bryan, a young guy that could have really used that fame, if you really want to be technical about it, this kind of wiped the slate clean for Brock Lesnar. He pretty much, he came off a loss in Triple H a couple WrestleManias ago. He came off a loss, I believe, to The Rock at Survivor Series. He came off quite a few losses, and then to beat The Undertaker, pretty much, wiped his slate clean. My only problem with that is, you're giving a win like that, a huge win, something that's going to pretty much be a milestone in somebody's career, pretty much going to be almost like a launching pad for somebody, and you're giving it to a guy that only works a handful of dates a year. Again, that was Undertaker's choice, and I know WWE was really involved with that as well, but in my personal opinion, I think they should have given it to a young guy, a Cesaro, or a Daniel Bryan, or something like that. Now, Daniel Bryan obviously had his day. We saw that. He actually, is the new World Heavyweight Champion. So Daniel Bryan definitely had his day at WrestleMania, but a lot of very, it was, in my opinion, this past WrestleMania is probably one of the best WrestleManias we've seen in several years. And, the match in my opinion, they could not have picked a better match to start it out with than Triple H and Daniel Bryan. That really set the tone for the whole show. And then the Undertaker thing really just kind of blew everybody away. And then obviously the main event was phenomenal. And let me tell you, a couple things let me tell you about the Undertaker match. He was wrestling almost the entire match with a concussion. And it just showed you how old school and just how tough he is, that he's able to actually go ahead and almost wrestle like a half-hour match, concussed and with an injury. So more going to come out on that. If also too, folks, if you're a wrestling fan like I am, you also know Sting signed with WWE. He's the only legend that has never been on the WWE roster, and now he is. Yes, everybody's pointing out in the chat room to me, they're saying, well, Sting, was the WCW franchise and how much he did in TNA. Why would he go to WWE? I really think he went to WWE for the main reason being that he wants to cement his legacy. And because unless he works for WWE, I don't think he's ever going to get in the Hall of Fame. A lot of the other guys, like the Freebirds of it, that never really worked. Well, the guys worked for Vince, but, those companies, the guys the earlier companies that Vince bought, Stampede, stuff like that. Those guys got in because they at some time or another worked for Vince. If Sting never works for Vince, he'll never be in the Hall of Fame. And we know Sting wants to cement his legacy. Now, being in TNA Hall of Fame, that's a big deal, yeah, but not like the WWE Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? And I'm not just saying that 'cause I'm a WWE guy. I'm saying that because, there will never be a WCW Hall of Fame, and that's where he deserves to be. Now, he's in the NWA Hall of Fame, which I think is my opinion, very well deserving for Sting. He was a huge NWA guy, did a lot of work with WCW back when they were still with NWA. And really, but, when he was Surfer Sting before he became the Crow Sting with the whole NWO, he did a lot for them. But the truth is, unless he works for Vince, he's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. And, he's going there now to do that. But WrestleMania 30 definitely worth the time to watch. And now, well, yeah, some people saying, was it worth the money? Well, and see, this is why I love the chat room. They always give me, a lot of people say all the time, I need a co-host. I know I'm the sole commentator, I'm like Bob Uecker, but, the chat room was funny because it always gives me somebody to pretty much talk to almost. But the WWE Network, you're absolutely right. If you have the WWE Network, you don't watch anything, except for your $9.99 a month, which is, what everybody pays for the network. But, one thing about the WWE Network, and I was talking to a few people about this over the weekend. It was brought up on Busted Open Nation, their Sirius XM show that talks about wrestling and the world of professional wrestling and all that. And what they were saying was, and I didn't even really think about this myself, was that companies like UFC, professional boxing, this network, this WWE Network to them is everything they despise. They don't want the network to succeed because the truth is, if the network succeeds, think about what it's going to do to their business model. I mean, UFC makes the majority of their money off of selling pay-per-views. Boxing, the guys, the fighters, the boxers get paydays based on what the buy rates are. Now HBO boxing and stuff like that's a little different. But, these guys, they get their payouts based on what the revenue is for the buys. And I mean, this is if this takes off, which I think it will, WWE's close to almost a million subscribers. This is going to change the entire way the business operates. It's going to change the entire pay-per-view market. Vince pioneered the pay-per-view back with the first WrestleMania. Okay. And now at WrestleMania 30 and the network, he's re-pioneering pay-per-view again. Okay. What he invented, he might destroy. And what I mean by destroy in a good way. Okay, what he invented, he might actually go ahead and destroy with this whole network. And a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, companies like UFC, companies like professional boxing, radio shows and stuff that put on pay-per-views, all that type of stuff. This network is a thorn in their spine because this is everything that they don't want. But this is everything that WWE wants. Because with the network, the one thing that they're going to do, which a lot of people don't realize, is they are going to go ahead and they are going to pull people that weren't into wrestling back. People like me that have not bought a pay-per-view in 3 years. I watch Raw every week, but I don't watch I don't buy pay-per-views. So this is going to draw the mainstream wrestling fan back in, because for $9.99 a month, people are going to watch every pay-per-view. People are going to get more into it. The other thing this does, folks, that nobody realizes is the one thorn. I know my one buddy, he refused to be a cord cutter. He would not get rid of cable because there was no way of him watching Raw live. With this, he can. My friend, as soon as the day WWE Network debuted, he got the network, canceled his cable. He watches Netflix, he watches Hulu, and he watches WWE on the network. That's it. What WWE is doing, they are getting back all the people that said, hey, I can't afford cable anymore. I'm going to cut cable. I'm not going to get to see Raw, but whatever. I'm going to do what I got to do. With the network, since the network airs Raw, SmackDown, all that live, they have pretty much guaranteed that anybody that cut the cord on cable will be able to watch their shows now. I bet you a lot of those people that joined the network were people that cut the cord and don't have cable. I bet you a lot of people are those people, and WWE is completely reinventing it. Another thing too, somebody's just saying to me. Somebody actually just said to me here in the chat room, they said, well, WWE Network is great, but the only problem is I can only watch it on my PC, you can only watch it on the PC, Xbox. They completely forgot about the Chromecast. Yeah, I know. I know that too, because we have a Chromecast, in our bedroom, because we don't have a lot of room in there. So we just did a Chromecast rather than a Roku box. And yeah, I know, you have to watch it on either an iPad or a computer or something. There is no, there's no Chromecast. WWE, there's no app for the Chromecast yet. But apparently the SDK was released for the Chromecast, and from what I've read, WWE is actually working with the SDK right now. And I have that from actually a source that actually works, not works for WWE, but actually does work with Google on SDKs. And he actually said he knows for a fact that WWE is working with them on their SDK. So I'm sure we will be getting a Chromecast app very soon, along with an Amazon Fire and some other people that don't have the service yet. But I mean, Amazon Fire TV is still pretty new. I mean, it's only been out a week now, if that. I know the Kindle itself does have an app for it, but which, if you remember, there was no Kindle app. The first 2 weeks it was out, there was no Kindle app. Now there is, but there wasn't at the first couple weeks it was out. A lot of people don't even know that. So some other news, folks. We'll get off wrestling because I could talk about wrestling all day, and I see the chat room is on fire ever since I started talking about wrestling. But in a good way, on fire, by the way, guys. Some other things as well, folks. When you start talking about Windows XP ending on the 8th, it actually ended on the 8th. But, a lot of people, I'm getting a lot of questions about this, folks, talking about how Windows XP actually, when it is over. Folks, just because Windows XP is not supported anymore by Windows. First of all, let's put it this way: it's still supported. Microsoft is still supporting it for the big companies and all that stuff. They're still supporting it for the big banks. They're still supporting Windows. I just got somebody in chat room just said Windows Embedded. That's actually my friend. He actually works with Windows Embedded. He works for a company, and that's all this company uses is Windows Embedded. But when you start talking about it's not supported for the home users. Now, if you have a computer, in an environment with a bank or something like that, you're dealing with a situation where that you're going to be able to get the patches, you're going to be able to to get all that kind of stuff. But the key is, folks, is that you're going to be able to get the patches if you work for a large company. You're going to be able to get the updates if you work for a large company. All that stuff is going to be available to you. It's just the, all that stuff's going to be readily available to you. But, you're going to suffer. So when you are a home user, there are things you can do to go ahead and protect yourself. Not running as admin, running as a regular user, having updated antivirus. If you remember, Microsoft specifically said, "Hey, we're not supporting Windows XP anymore, but we will be supporting." All the antivirus programs. They're still going to be supporting Security Center. They're still going to be supporting all the antivirus. They make Essentials, all that stuff. So just because they're not supporting it, they're still supporting the security product. Like I said, the only people they're not supporting are the home users. If you're a big company that's willing to pay money for patches, willing to pay money for any of that stuff. I even heard rumbles that some companies have actually even asked Microsoft for an Internet Explorer 9 for their for XP. So if you're a big company, a bank, a private company with all those XP machines, and you're willing to buy, as long as people keep forking over the money, Microsoft's still going to keep supporting it, is what it comes down to. So it's the home users like you and me that are the ones I got to worry. If you work for a big company and you know that you need, big companies figured this out already. They're not worried about the end of the day because if they know they have that many XP machines, they've already talked to Microsoft, found out about extended licensing and all that. They're not worried about this. So, as people like you and me, but there are ways to protect yourself. If you're, a home user and you need to protect yourself, you have good AV on there. You don't run as admin. You run a more, the big thing is the browser, running Chrome, things of that nature. Those are the things that you need to do if you want to keep running, XP. So some other things, folks, since one thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about the news a little bit. There was a lot of news in the world of technology. Microsoft obviously Patch Tuesday came out. Critical vulnerabilities, obviously, that need to be patched, that came out. If you have, as most people know, obviously, that it's, Patch Tuesday. If you don't notice, most people set it to automatic updates. They don't even know anymore. But Patch Tuesday, a lot of critical patches out, a lot of Office patches, some patches to protect you against web-based attacks. The last update from Windows XP, obviously, Apple released Safari, released updates for Safari and stuff. Not a lot of patches, but enough that that's going to be worried about. And definitely want to get those patches, especially if you're running XP, because it's kind of the last batch if you're a home user. Another thing, folks, a video went viral on the internet this week, specifically over the earlier part of this week, about disabling Find My iPhone on iOS 7 without a password. There actually is maybe we'll probably include that link with the show notes, but there actually is a way when you go to actually disable, when you go to delete your iCloud account, right? It'll ask you for a password. You hit cancel a bunch of times, reboot your phone, go back to iCloud, hit delete, and it goes away. There's actually a vulnerability built into it, so it looks like Apple's going to fix that. But that particular security video went viral, had millions and just just millions of hits. So I'm sure, again, you need physical access to the phone, but again, it was one of those things that was, it's a big vulnerability. So, it went pretty viral. So some other news as well, not really major news, but a new head of the FCC Enforcement Bureau, the ARRL, seeking more amateur enforcement. What the ARRL wants to do there is they really want to buckle down and really start enforcing a lot of the really protecting the amateur radio bands so that the FCC don't take them over, protecting people that are doing things they shouldn't be doing on the band, stuff like that. A lot of ghost call signs, stuff like that. So they're working on that. Apparently as well, one of the things that I guess a lot of hams are looking to do, and this actually wasn't a news talk, I got this from a couple hams I was talking to. Apparently the 60-meter ban is not readily available in all countries, so a lot of countries are pushing hard to try to get the 60-meter ban. So that was news as well. Obviously, they re-elected the same ARRL president this week. That was in the news as well. Some other things as well. Comcast makes the case for $45.2 billion merger to Time Warner. As you know, Comcast obviously taking over Time Warner. I know a lot of people not really upset with this whole merger. I guess a lot of people don't have a lot of love for Time Warner. So I guess they're really happy that Comcast is taking it over, but Comcast originally kicked off the regulatory review process Tuesday for the $45.2 billion merger with Time Warner, with filing detailing the benefits and defending itself against claims the deal would harm competition. Obviously, this is going into a lot more of that antitrust stuff that we always seem to have to deal with. I've heard Microsoft deal with a lot of this stuff back in the day. And what I think is funny is Google's going to have to start dealing with this stuff now as well. If you don't know, there's been a lot of cases over Google right now saying that they own the whole search market. So there's a big thing over antitrust with Google right now. The truth is they own the search market. They have the best search out there. So they're I just think this whole thing with antitrust over Google and their search engine is just a bunch of baloney, but that's just me. So, Comcast goes through, detailing the report. You can find all this right up on CNET. That's where I pulled the article from. But a lot of stuff about them looking over the merger, strong, opposition from some customer groups and other critics who say the combining Comcast and Time Warner would make them too powerful. Comcast is already the largest cable operator in the nation, and Time Warner is the second largest. So it's going to be monopoly, antitrust garbage like we always have to deal with when any company tries to buy out their competition. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure they'll be getting some kind of antitrust lawsuit. They'll be dealing with something along the lines of antitrust. I'm sure they will. It's just the nature of the beast. So some other news as well. Speaking of Comcast and it's apparently, its merger of Time Warner. Apparently, along with that, they have these goof awards on the internet, and apparently Comcast emerged victorious for the annual Worst Company in America contest, saying how bad the company is and how a lot of people weren't happy with their customer service and things of that nature. So I'm reading about that. Actually, somebody in the chat room actually says to me right now, they can't be any worse than Time Warner. When I reboot my cable box in the city, it takes almost 20 minutes to reboot. I miss a whole episode of Seinfeld if I have to reboot my cable box. That's actually pretty funny. You're not the only person I've heard that from. Actually, that's the sad part about it. So Google Chrome 34 released. That was in the news as well. Not any huge gigantic changes, but there were some minor changes, I guess, to the product. The new version included support of responsive images, an unprefixed version of the web audio API. With importing supervised users, you can update the latest release, with built-in silent updater, some stuff that people have been asking for. A lot of stuff that people have been asking for, they built in. And as you know, Chrome's on that 6-week update cycle, so that obviously makes it much much more, so they can update it more often than once every 6 months on a 6-week update cycle. So a lot of talk about, too, a lot of people asking questions right now, especially in the chat room right now, saying that, will Apple, Google, and Amazon ever come out with one remote? There was an article about that. I didn't get too much into it, but I had heard something about that. It was up on Slashdot. I don't have the article in front of me right now, but yeah, I had heard something about that briefly. Apparently Windows 8.1, the update that's coming out, apparently not only are they going to add the start menu back, but they're actually going to improve performance for non-touch hardware. That's amazing. So something we've been asking for months, Windows 8's coming out. And again, I think this is going to be, I don't know if it's going to be called 8.2 now or something like that. Microsoft's going to call it. I don't have that information in front of me, but yeah, there's information coming out about that now as well. So apparently Yahoo said I guess Melissa Mayer said that she's going to take a break from purchasing companies for a while to actually go ahead, and she wants to start getting into the TV programming industry like Netflix and obviously HBO has been there for years, but HBO Go and a lot of other things. She wants to get into kind of an online kind of streaming service type of thing. So she's obviously really, she's been a real visionary for Yahoo, definitely helped them out tremendously where they actually needed it. And so they're looking to actually start their own online streaming service. So, I said this, those of you that were reading the blog for a while and some of my earlier podcasts, I said, if Netflix took off like it did, and it did, the streaming service did, once they put better quality movies on there, the early Netflix with all those B movies just wasn't cutting it. But I said this, if Netflix took off like they wanted it to, I guarantee that everybody would have their hands in the pot. And within almost 5 years, 6 years, everybody has their hands in the pot now. Everybody has an online streaming service now. So that happened in the music business. When Napster took off and then they legalized Napster and then everything, then everybody started to get their hands in the pot. Once Apple got it going with iTunes, then everybody got their hands in the pot. So that's just the way it is. But yeah, so they're looking to get into that business now. As you know, 4K streaming was something that a lot of people were talking about at the last big conference. It looks like Netflix is going to begin streaming 4K content with their House of Cards series. They're going to be experimenting with it using House of Cards. Obviously, that's their real flagship content, even though actually a lot of people don't know this. Lilyhammer was actually the first Netflix original series. It does well. It does really well, actually. But Netflix is actually their flagship program. So the Weather Channel, if you have DirecTV, according to the news, it looks like you will be going ahead and you will be getting your Weather Channel back on DirecTV. Now, the interesting thing about this, what I thought was funny was when they were originally taken off. Being a ham radio operator, I'm very much involved with the National Weather Service, and the funny part about this was when the National Weather Service first. They were actually making some funny comments on their Facebook and stuff saying that I don't understand why DirecTV not having the Weather Channel is a public safety issue. They can't issue, weather alerts or anything like that, and they can't. So, it really is true. The Weather Channel, they can't issue, severe weather advisories or anything. Only the National Weather Service can. So, how that was a public safety issue is far beyond me. But yeah, that was kind of funny. So it looks like, by the way, Microsoft they're going to probably be releasing a free version of Windows, but only for mobile devices. I believe Microsoft's going to be doing that now, trying to compete with, obviously, Android. I doubt that's going to take off, but we'll see what happens. Some other stuff as well. Some first paid fake Android app was downloaded by almost 10,000 people before it was taken off the store. That was in the news as well this week, folks. It was called Virus Shield. It was actually a $3.99 purchase. 10,000 people bought it. That's a lot of people buying malware. That's a lot of money made off of fake malware. So that was in the news this week. Intel axing 1,500 jobs in Costa Rica. There's actually some controversy over that. A lot of people were saying that, they're cutting jobs. They're actually saying those jobs were cut because they may actually move them to America. So I'm not sure if I'm that upset about that. So, it'd be good to see them moving back to the Valley and giving some more people some work. So, 6 major Hollywood movie studios, by the way, filing suit against Mega Upload still. That's going to be going on for years, I think. And Kim's got the money to keep fighting it, so I think it's going to go on. But that was on Mashable. Apparently there's 6 studios that are still suing him, and it looks like he's going to keep fighting it. We'll see what happens with that. Some of the case information's up on the internet if you want to read it. I'm not going to take the time to read it, but yeah, there actually is that. So FCC, by the way, talking more about Comcast. Comcast was really the center of news attention this week. FCC ordering Comcast to stop labeling equipment rentals as a service fee, so they have to kind of change the way they charge you. Now, it's basically just going to be the way they bill you on your bill. It's going to be different. You trust me, you're still going to be getting the charge. It's just going to be differently displayed on your bill. So the worst data breach in German history, 18 million email passwords compromised. That was in the news this week. I know we do have some international listeners. They were actually, this is actually one of the worst security breaches ever in German history. It's actually one of the worst security breaches, just period. But there's actually 16 million compromised email passwords. I've been extracting a lot of people. They haven't really released the names of the company yet that was hacked. But they're saying it's a fairly large ISP. They're going to be releasing it later this week. I guess they're trying to get all the information together first before they release it. So a vulnerable Texas transportation site leaves 1.2 million credit cards at risk. That was in the news this week as well, folks. That's actually really big. As you know, folks, everybody uses EasyPass and all that nowadays. Well, TX Tag. There's actually a major security breach there, and actually 1.2 million credit cards available, obviously because they probably have that many people that use their credit cards. I know myself, when I first got my EasyPass, you can send a check in every month to keep your account built up on money, and then when you drive through, it tell you low account, send payment. I know myself, I never did that. I just hooked it to a credit card, and I think the majority of people do. I don't know many people that mail in checks for the EasyPass. I mean, I suppose you could, but I don't know many people that do it. But there was actually a problem on their website, and they're actually going to go ahead, like I said, and so if you do use TX Tag, I would recommend you go there, you contact them regarding your account. Some other stuff as well. Obviously, student hacks Apple Passport app and gets free flight boarding passes. That was in the news this week. That was a real popular one. This week especially, so it's just amazing. This is almost as good as that kid, that 5-year-old that hacked the Xbox by hitting the spacebar a few times. So that was in the news as well. Like I said, the iOS app Passport allows you to scan, as you know, the barcodes and stuff. Well, apparently this kid figured out how to actually use. It wasn't even really. It was kind of a software hack, but he said mostly it was social engineering tactics that helped him accomplish the software hack. So not a lot of information yet released on how he did it, but that was actually, in the news this week, and that actually made the national news, which is not so great for Apple, considering they've had some negative feedback. Facebook adding free voice calling feature to its message app. That was in the news this week. Popular navigation app hijacked with fake bot to cause traffic jam. That actually made the national news as well. But it was actually the application Waze reported traffic jams, all type of stuff, and they weren't really traffic jams, so it was causing a bit of a problem. So it's fixed now, but it caused quite a problem there for a little bit for some people that were just trying to commute. Twitter acquires Cover, an Android lock screen app. Not really exactly sure what they're going to do with it yet, but it is a very popular lock screen app that they have purchased. I'd be interested to see what they're going to do. There were some brief talks about it, but I think a lot of it is still speculation at this point. But like I said, they did acquire a lock screen app Obviously, the cover was founded by a former Google employee and launched as its own separate thing, but they were actually acquired by Twitter. The company announced they're going to do it. They're not really exactly sure what it's going to do yet with it, but they definitely acquired it and they are going to do something with it. As you know, Facebook tried to accomplish kind of control the lock screen whole thing a while back. It didn't really work out, but we'll see what happens with this now. So some other things, folks, I wanted to get into as well. Game of Thrones had one of the biggest premieres, for HBO shows, and to the point where they actually, so many people were trying to get it after it aired that it actually took HBO go down. Pretty much everybody performed a denial of service on HBO, so that's pretty funny. But it was actually renewed for 2 additional seasons, so that was neat. Some other things, well, too. Captain America had a pretty huge weekend as well. This past weekend, by the way, breaking records for in any April opening, which is pretty cool. As you know, Battlestar Galactica going to have a reboot as well. Some other news as well, folks, that I want to talk about, not really tech-related, but obviously Letterman retiring and Stephen Colbert are going to be taking over for him. I know some people are really upset that really like the Colbert Report, myself included. I always thought the Colbert Report was pretty funny, but apparently now he's going to be taking over Letterman, which good for him. But he even said himself it's going to be him taking over Letterman show, not the Steve Colbert character that you see on Comedy Central. So a little bit interesting to see. I'm not a huge late night guy. The late night I do watch is on HBO when I have a chance to, which is very, very rare. But so good for Colbert. I actually am not going to lie. I was always a Letterman guy. But be as it may, good for Colbert. Google to launch an Android TV. As we all know, Google already has its own set-top box, but now it's looking to launch more of an Android type of based TV. So we'll see what happens with that. Vine co-founder Colin Kroll is stepping down from the company. He doesn't want to do it anymore, which for him, he's made his decision. He probably doesn't want to be at the company anymore, but he was a co-founder, so I'm sure he made out pretty well, financially when he's leaving. I know he did say he's probably going to sell stock. So Sony, by the way, backing ad-supporting streaming with exclusive content for Crackle. So as you know, Crackle's coming out, has some just like all the other services, has its own shows that are exclusive to it, and it looks like they're going to be having some ads and stuff on there. Seagate releases a 6 terabyte hard drive. That was in the news this week. The other thing too, folks, is OpenSSL bug that's been around that allows you to read memory in 64K chunks. I did a post on our blog about it. You can read it there. I'm not going to get too much into it. There was a ton of mainstream media following it. I don't want to get too much into it because the mainstream media covered it so much. But what happened was there's an SSL bug that allows you to read chunks of data from anybody's SSL cert, allows you obviously to get passwords and things of that nature. So they're telling people if anybody has gotten any SSL certs over the last year or so, make sure you go ahead and change, not change your SSL, but make sure you review how it's done and change things up a little bit. So you might want to get yourself a new SSL cert and stuff like that. So a lot of news that I don't want to get too much into it because it was covered. Yeah, everybody's saying in the chat room too. They talked it to death on the news, which they do with almost anything that's gonna make ratings. Apparently, by the way, folks, rumors of the Apple iWatch rumored in the third quarter. That was in the news this week as well. A lot of people saying, by the way, don't forget the Samsung Galaxy S5 hit today. Yeah, I know. It hit that, and the Gear is also gonna be exclusive on AT&T for a little bit too. All that Gear stuff that they're selling is going to be exclusive on AT&T. And last bit of news as well, folks. China obviously approves Nokia's sale of phone business to Microsoft. So a lot of news this week. A lot more of it we probably could have talked about, but what we're going to do, folks, we're going to do my favorite part of the show, and of course that is, as always, folks, open lines. And as always, everybody in the chat room saying it's not open lines, Brandon, it's open conversation. Yeah, you're right, it is, because it's not exactly, it's not exactly open lines, because obviously I take questions via email, chat, phone, all that. So yeah, it is really an open conversation, but I call it open lines. I always have and always will. I can't get past that little thing in my head from all those years to listen to Coast AM. So we're going to do open lines. So how open lines is, like I said, folks, exactly what it sounds like. It's an open line. You can talk to me about anything you want to talk about. Anything at all. I don't care. Anything. Talk to me about anything you want to talk about. As always, folks, Lapani Tech on Twitter. Lapani Tech on Skype. Lapani Tech at Gmail. And obviously in our chat room on our website. And like I said, we're going to do open lines. The only rule is, folks, no bad language. No bad language. Somebody said to me on the chat room now, if you're a fan of Coast to Coast AM, shouldn't you have a fax machine set up for open line? Yes, I remember that. I do. Wow, somebody's actually, they must definitely be a big fan of the old Coast to Coast, because they actually have the word dark matter in their screen name. Yeah, Art Bell used to actually have a fax machine in there. People would actually send them. This is before the email was really big, folks. People would actually send them faxes right in and he would read them. You'd hear the fax machine going in the back. You'd take the paper off and read it to him. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, well, you definitely are a long time listener like myself. But so, folks, open lines, folks. Anything you want to talk about, you want to call in, anything, go ahead. One of the things somebody in the chat room said, what do you think about Radio Shack closing? Well, here's the thing, Radio Shack was, they're closing a lot of stores and stuff. Radio Shack has become a bona fide cell phone store now. Now, there are some independently owned Radio Shacks that do very well. There's one up by me in the Stroudsburg area that does incredibly well. Not only is it a Radio Shack, but it's also a computer repair place. They're actually side by side. It's a tiny Radio Shack on the right, and the other part of the store is a tiny computer store. He actually does incredibly well. I know the guy. He's a young guy like myself in his early to, almost 30s like myself. Oof, man, I hate saying that word. Age is just a number, folks. He does incredibly well. The Radio Shack does well. His computer repair business does well. He has a lot of business customers he travels to. And I asked him one time, I said, how much do you actually make in the Radio Shack? And he actually said to me, my service work at the computer business and the Radio Shack business, he said it evens out for me. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He goes, I do really, really well. He goes, I do probably about maybe 60% computer work and 40% of the rest of the business is Radio Shack. And I said, I was really surprised. A lot of the small the independently owned Radio Shacks do very well. It's the big chain ones, like the ones you see at, these big these big shopping malls and stuff, that are the ones that are really hurting because they sell cell phones. The original Radio Shack was designed for ham radio operators, electronic hobbyists, and all that. There still is a lot of that out there. But the problem is a lot of these Radio Shacks have gotten away from that and just went to selling cell phones. If they would have kept the cell phones and the other electronic stuff, I think they would have done very well. But I think a lot of the people, and even my friend that does own the independent Radio Shack, he said to me, he goes, I have a few cell phones in the front. He's like, but that's not where I make my money. He goes, I make my money selling other stuff. And so I really think Radio Shack themselves, it definitely is a very powerful brand name. But I think what'll happen is the company, the corporate Radio Shacks, the ones that Radio Shack themselves owns, are going to go out of business. But the privately owned ones, I believe there's 250, maybe 300 and some, my friend was telling me. I don't know, quote me on the numbers, folks, but he said most of them, the privately owned ones, do very well. It's the big corporate ones that are going out of business. So, a lot of that too is poor management and stuff like that, but that's what he was telling me. So, I'm upset about the Radio Shack's closing. I myself, I'm an electronic hobbyist, as most of you know from listening to the show and all that, and my blog and stuff. So I'm also a ham radio operator. So Radio Shack is near and dear to me. I will still support my buddies because it's a local Radio Shack. He's a local business owner, and he knows what the heck he's talking about when it comes to electronics. So I'll still support him. But the other Radio Shacks, they're just going to go under. So it's unfortunate, but that is the way it is. Somebody else says to me in the chat room, What about Mozilla CEO having to step down due to the whole gay situation? I personally don't care what his sexual preference is at all. If he's gay, he supports gay rights. If that's what he feels, God bless. I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all one bit. I think it's ridiculous that in this modern day and age that they're actually making this man step down because they don't think it makes the company look good. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I think that's the thing that the news media and everybody really jumped on. And I think if that is the case, they're making him step down because of that. I think it's an absolute shame that in the year 2014 that somebody's sexual preference can still really is still really doing this. I think it's really, I think it's really a shame. I myself, somebody's preference does not make any difference to me whatsoever, and I think it's really a shame that they are making him step down because of that. It really is a shame. I think we're still really, I think it's medieval thinking personally. So somebody else says in the chat room, did you hear about Canada freezing online income tax due to the heartbleed bug? Yeah, I heard about that. They actually went ahead and actually stopped transactions I actually have a guest in my studio right now. They actually went ahead and they actually made him stop. They actually freeze a lot of online accounts because a lot of the companies were actually hit by that. So, some other things as well too, folks. Microsoft had a stolen cert that actually it was a Zeus banking Trojan, actually caused quite a few problems. So there was actually something to do with that as well. Somebody says, don't forget to mention the Toyota recall. Yes, I do. I remember the Toyota recall, and I actually heard about that. Toyota recalling 1.77 million vehicles. I had actually heard about that. Somebody asked, is their vehicle on the list? Well, I don't know what kind of vehicle you had, but there's a whole list up there. I know they are. I know it's the Corollas, the Matrix, the Highlanders, Tacomas. It's huge. It's a huge recall. Most of them are overseas, but there are some here in America that are going to actually be recalled. So, I got an email, folks. By the way, I got an email yesterday, so I want to make sure I ask it. Go ahead and like I said, emails. And by the way, folks, a couple people asked, by the way, and I forgot to mention this. As always, folks, if you want to, some people aren't comfortable with actually going ahead and being on the air with the open lines. If you want to ask the questions, folks, 570-630-0744. Go ahead and leave a message in our voicemail box, and I'll actually listen to it there as well and play it on the show. Some people obviously can't call in while the show is live, obviously, because they're not around or something like that. But that's actually a number. Again, I'll give you that one more time, 570-630-0744 is the line. Leave a message in our voicemail box, and I'll play it during the show. Some other things as well, folks, too. An email I got from somebody the other day asking me, is Bitcoin investable? You got to watch the market. At times, yes, but when the exchange got hacked a while back, it pretty much almost killed the entire, Bitcoin plummeted. So is it investable? I think it is, yes. The problem I have with it is it's just like the stock market. Now, as most of you know, you've listened to me for years. I don't really truly believe in investing in stocks. I don't think the hold time is long enough on them. So I don't know if it'd be something that I would invest in, but yes, it is very, very investable. You just have to really watch what you're going to. You have to really watch it and see what it's going to do to see when do you buy, when do you sell Bitcoins. So that it's just like a currency. It's just exactly like currency trading. And it honestly, to tell you the truth, there's books out there on it. There are people that know a lot about it, currency traders and stuff. There's a lot of information out there. So go ahead, folks, and go ahead and read up on it. You'll get quite a bit of information. Another question I have coming in right now on my email, and this is actually a question that was actually I actually have a message in my voicemail box actually. But there was a question somebody came in today, was what kind of a scanner should I buy? I don't hear a lot of people talking about scanners anymore. Yeah, you don't really. Unfortunately, you don't hear a lot of people talking about scanners and Twain. And for those of you that don't know, by the way, Twain stands for Technology Without an Interesting Name. For those of you that are ever going to be on Jeopardy, you're going to need to know that answer. But what I recommend, folks, is for a scanner. Epson puts out a really good scanner. I've always had Epson scanners. They've always been really good to me. And honestly, folks, if you're going to spend the money to get a scanner, just, in my personal opinion, just buy an all-in-one unit, printer, scanner, copier, all-in-one. You're probably going to spend more for a single individual scanner, if you can even find one anymore, than just buying an all-in-one unit. Years ago, all-in-ones were $400 or $500. Nowadays, they're relatively reasonable. So that's what I would recommend. And honestly, if you're going to get one, you could probably even get a color one. Color scan, all the scanners will scan in color, by the way. That was somebody asked in a chat room. Well, what if she gets a black and white laser printer? There's a scanner only, scan of black and white. No, that's not true. It'll scan in color, but if it's a black and white printer, it'll only print in black and white. That's an old wives' tale, yeah. But that's what I recommend. Epson's a pretty good one. Canon even makes a pretty decent one too. I would recommend one of them too. Like I said, you can go with the all-in-one. You can go with a laser jet. You can go with an inkjet. There's a lot of different options there that you could go with if you're looking to buy a scanner. So one of the things, folks, I do have a message actually in our voicemail box. This guy's actually a regular on the show. One of the things he asked me was, can I use a VPN to get around the ISP's throttling Netflix? That's actually a really good question, and yes, it will work. Just like if you use the Tor browser, you can actually get around. As most people, if you don't know, folks, Netflix is actually having to pay people like Chromecast and places like that to actually stop throttling Netflix. These places were throttling Netflix by almost 34%. So now what they've actually gone ahead and done is they've actually worked with a lot of these big Netflix has actually worked with these big companies to actually go ahead and pay them so that they won't throttle people anymore. Because that was a big issue, was people getting throttled and the buffering and all that stuff. So Netflix has went through a lot of hassle to actually go ahead, folks, and get people to stop throttling Netflix on them. But the Tor browser or going through a VPN will work. Now, the only problem with that is, since you're going through a VPN, you have to deal with encryption and decryption. And that very well could slow you down tremendously with Netflix. And that I could see being a problem you're going to deal with. Perhaps you're going to be buffering because pretty much you don't have any bandwidth because it's going to take a lot more processing power to obviously to decrypt and recrypt things. So that's another problem I could see. I know some people have told me they've had success with using the Tor browser, with getting around. I've read some stuff on that as well. But I think that will really work. And that's from our friend Josh. He calls into the line quite a bit. And again, folks, just to give you the number one more time, it's 570-630-0744. Leave a message and we'll play your message on the next podcast. Somebody asked, this is a really popular question. Somebody asked, can I use Windows on a Mac? You can. You absolutely can. You can use Boot Camp, which will allow you to dual boot the Mac and Windows. I personally don't like doing dual booting, and I'll tell you why. I just think in this day and age with this as reliable as virtualization, I would rather see somebody take the time to actually go ahead, and build a VirtualBox environment for Windows. That's what I would do. I would take VirtualBox, load up Windows, and use that. Or you can use the VMware player has a good product as well, and you can actually go ahead and do that. That's what I would recommend, folks. If you're going to dual boot both Windows, and a Mac, I personally would say, and here's why: because with your dual boot Windows, if you crash Windows, that means you're reloading both Windows and the Mac. But here's the thing especially if you're going to be doing any type of thing, especially if you're going to be using it in an environment where you could risk getting viruses, you're going to be doing a lot of surfing or any type of programming. With the VirtualBox, you can actually have your Mac OS X up, and you can also have Windows up simultaneously. Now, here's the other good thing. The other good part about that is not only are you actually going to go ahead and have have your situation where you're going to have both up at the same time, but you're also going to be in a situation, folks, where you actually can take snapshots of your system. So say and I'm just going to say programming, for example, because I've got some experience with programming. Say for some reason you're going to be doing, some kind of programming and you're at risk of, you could mess up your Windows kernel or something. You can actually make a snapshot of it first, and then you can go ahead, then folks, run your program and say you crash the system. You just go into VirtualBox, right click, say use this snapshot, and you're back in business in 5 minutes. Where if you're going to be dual booting, you may be dealing in a situation where you may be an all-day project. So that's the reason why I like it. And now there are problems with VirtualBox that you're not going to hear about. The one problem you're going to run into is, for some reason, and I don't know why, especially with Mac OS X, is you always seem, and I know this from experience because I had this problem a while back, you always seem to run into the issue where you have a problem where the USB device isn't working properly. That always seems to happen on VirtualBox. You also seem to have a problem as well with some other little things as well, like with sound and stuff like that. So VirtualBox has its pluses and it has its minuses. I do see people that dual boot in school districts environments or in work office environments as well, where maybe that's not an issue. But I know if you're going to do any type of programming or doing anything where could possibly get a virus, I would recommend using VirtualBox. So again, it does have its pluses and it does have its minuses. But that's what I would recommend. There's also a VMware player. And the funny thing is, folks, tell you too, so talking about virtualization on machines and stuff, I'll tell you a funny something I found that was quite interesting. A lot of companies nowadays, and by the way, folks, and you can find this by the way yourself, a lot of people want to load Linux fairly easily. Linux, especially like Ubuntu or Backtrack especially, they have the VMs. You just download the VMs, fire up VMware player, and within, like, depending on your internet speed, but within like 10 minutes you have a whole Linux up and running. And then you just take snapshots of it. It really is amazing. And what I'm finding as well, folks, is that you're getting a lot of companies that used to sell appliances, especially companies like WebSense, thing like that, are now just go ahead and selling you the VM. They'll say to you, well, what are you using, Hyper-V or using Hyper-V, or are you using another product? And you'll say, you might say, I'm using VMware. And they might actually say, oh, okay, you're using VMware? Okay, we'll send you the VMware style, the VMware compatible virtual machine. And you just hook it up just like that. And I'll tell you, a lot of people say, why would you do that? Well, simple. One, it's cheaper for you. Two, it's cheaper for the company. And three, it's all set up for you. There's very little config involved. Some of these companies will even go as far as to configure and send it to you. You just fire it up and it's ready to rock and roll. So, very interesting stuff there as far as, VMware goes, stuff of that. Some other things, another question, folks, that I got earlier in the week. Somebody's telling me as well that telling me about I heard about that. Yeah, so there's actually a thing right now, folks, on talking about that. HP has actually gone as far as a lot of their I would read about a lot of their appliance based stuff for any of their storage area networks that are all virtual, all VMware based now. All their logging stuff. Yeah, what HP does, they'll give you just when they give you a new stand, they'll say, well, instead of giving you a logging server and a management server, they just give you the VM and you're kind of on your own. Yeah, well, not on your own, but what I'm trying to say, they actually do that now. Yeah, I've actually read about that. Some other things. Well, the last question I got here, folks, is what Bluetooth headset should I use with an iPhone? I personally like the Jawbones. I find they're easy to use. I find that they pair well, with the iPhone. I've actually have one myself I use. They actually do have newer ones as well, but I find that they pair fairly well. The only thing I can honestly say is I have heard some stuff from some people saying that they have a newer phone and the older jawbones and don't work as well, and vice versa. They have a newer jawbone and an older phone. So if you're going to be buying it off the internet, just be prepared. Make sure you have a return policy, because I'm not saying all that stuff, but I can tell you this though. I know for a fact that jawbone is the preferred headset, wireless headset for Apple. But one thing I have noticed is, and one of the funny things that I've read quite a bit, is that the most popular way to actually listen to your iPhone is, believe it or not, through the earbuds that are provided by Apple, which is pretty cool. So that was kind of neat. Well, I want to thank everybody, as always, for listening to our show. And again, as always, you can find the replay as soon as the show is over on our radio network, the Technology Geek Radio Network, which can be found on TuneIn as well as on our website. And I want to thank, as Shoutcast too, don't forget about that. And as always, I want to thank our sponsors. I want to give one more call out to our sponsors, Audible. Audible trial. You get a free book with our trial, audibletrial.com/techgeek. And again, that's one free download of all of our audiobooks. And as well as I want to thank you as well to our other sponsors, ProXPN, cloud-based VPN solution. They actually are really great. And if you're going to be doing any of your online banking, if you're going to be using any open Wi-Fi, if you're going to be doing anything where you're going to be passing sensitive material, sensitive data across the internet, I strongly recommend a VPN solution. Again, that's ProXPN.com, and use our coupon code TechGeek, TECGEK, TechGeek, so this way we get the credit for it. Again, that's ProXPN, and they provide a cloud-based VPN solution with a client for your phone on both the Android and iPhone, and as well as a PC client for both Windows and Mac. I want to thank everybody for listening, and we will see you next week. As always, we are live every Friday night between 9 o'clock and 11, and with as well open lines. Again, we will see you next week here on the Technology Geek Radio Network. Thank you very much.